I'm here with Slava, the CEO and founder of Indiegogo. Slava, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So you're in the middle of a revolution, probably the hottest thing since social media. A person with a great idea can actually go and find people who are passionate and help underwrite it. The liberation of capital, one of the last great revolution in this was capitalism. So I'm thrilled. So I want to start with your story. Give me the origin story of Indiegogo. A little bit about your background, where'd the name come from, how'd you create it? Talk to me.
That's a lot of questions, all wrapped into one. I was born in Belarus. I grew up in Brooklyn until I was 7. We moved to Pennsylvania. I grew up in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, where the show The Office is from.
Okay.
Went to public school through there, and then went to college at University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I was a Wharton undergrad, so finance and entrepreneurial management. I lived in Belgium for a year and studied out there. Was working at Cisco Systems, and after that was a strategy consultant for 8 years. Got to work on some really innovative new projects like rolling out wireless internet back in 2001, which was pretty cool through cell phone devices, which pretty revolutionary compared to it becoming mainstream in 2008. In 2008, I started Indiegogo. Well, we came up with the idea in 2006. There's 3 co-founders, so myself, Eric Schell, and Danae Ringelman. And the 3 of us all had a mutual frustration of trying to raise money using the internet. So Eric was on the board of a theater company. Danae had been working with different filmmakers to raise money. And myself, I started a charity. My dad died when I was 15 from cancer, multiple myeloma, which is bone marrow cancer. Sure. And being an Eastern European guy, I basically have no emotion. So I didn't really want to deal with it for a long time. And then finally, a decade later, as a New Year's resolution, I decided to start my own charity to try to turn something negative into a positive. But if you can remember the middle of the last decade, we're talking about Twitter is nascent, YouTube is not owned by Google, Facebook is smaller than MySpace, and Obama's not a word. So trying to raise money on the internet just, was terrible. So in 2006, we get together. I go to visit my really good friend Eric, who I've been working with for the last 6 years. He meets Danae, we all go to dinner. We're overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, sharing our experiences, and we say, hey, like any other good MBA class, why don't you guys, run this as your project to do an entrepreneurial business? And came with the idea in 2006 and launched it in January 2008.
So Indiegogo really was the first ever crowdfunding site.
Crowdfunding's been around for a really long time. I mean, I would even go so far as to say that the Statue of Liberty was crowdfunded. Joseph Pulitzer, in the late 1800s, was able to use the New World, the paper that was precedent to the New York Times, to actually reach out and raise the money they needed for the Statue of Liberty. They needed nearly $300,000 for the base, not the actual statue. That was free from the French. But the base cost nearly $300,000, and they had about a 50% gap. The cool thing was that they got an average of 83 cents per contribution. So it's amazing how many people actually contributed with nothing in return. Fast forward 130 years and you now have social media and a lot more transactions and credit cards, transparency, data. So yeah, we are really excited to launch this whole new way of doing crowdfunding. It's amazing to see hundreds of competitors follow.
Was the name Indiegogo, where'd that come? Was that the first name? Where'd it come from? What does it mean?
Well, the first name was just a project title. It was called Project Heiaku. You don't even have to ask about that. Indiegogo is really about the independent spirit, and go-go is fun and active. It comes crashing together, and that's Indiegogo. Plus it was available, so it was pretty cheap.
So you guys are overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. You're having this dinner. All 3 of you are frustrated about how to raise money. And talk a little more about what the conversation was, what that creative moment was that brought the vision forward.
And I think all 3 of us really had this shared experience of what it was like to actually try to do something and really hit those roadblocks. There's something happening, which is YouTube. People are watching videos. Prosper is brand new. There's kind of peer-to-peer loans. Kiva is interesting, where people are getting microfinance. But we're still wondering, why is it that people who run banks and people who are in charge of credit cards and the people at the grant applications at the government, why is it that an individual gets to decide all these things on the behalf of all these people when really you have the internet, which seems to be the ultimate democratization tool? So why isn't it yet impacting funding? So we kind of thought about that. We thought about mutual funds. We thought about different financial instruments that are actually regulated by the SEC, and we thought, how cool would it be if you just took away all of that and just allowed anybody to fund anything for any reason?
Were you self-funded? You raised capital?
Yeah, so we launched in January 2008 after about, I'd say, 15 months of research and coming up with the pilot and doing preliminary work on the website. And yeah, we totally self-fund. We bootstrap. We have this really devious plan as to, having more ownership of the company. So, we're three smart people. Our plan was a 3-quarter plan, which is Q1, we're going to launch and everybody's going to find out about it. Q2, we're going to have case studies that we're going to be able to work off of. And Q3, we're going to go raise money off of the successful launch and the case studies. And believe it or not, that actually was all moving forward in the right direction. And
something happened in 2008. Hard to remember what it was.
That's right. In the fall of 2008, we have a meltdown of the economy.
Of the entire global economy.
That's right. And that was challenging, to say the least. So really, we did plan to have our funding kind of last through Q3, which that had to somehow stretch all the way into 2010.
Wow.
So we then had an exciting year and a half to follow the market crash, where we just had to constantly keep on battling and figure out how we're going to stay forward. And
what was that moment when you knew you had something really great?
The thing that was really interesting is right away after launching, we had strangers signing up on the site getting funding. Not our friends, not people that were kind of in our pipeline, not people that we had to coerce to try to use the site, not people that we were connected to and kind of need to, bend their elbow a little bit. Just strangers were signing up on the site within weeks and getting fully funded. And clearly there was some there.
Yeah.
And if you can have zero marketing, have virtually no money, probably be horrible at the website you just created, because we were when we first started, and still people are able to accomplish what they're set out to do, there's definitely something there. And that's actually one of the reasons my co-founder Eric likes to say, beyond logic and reason, we continue to press forward through the market crash, because all logic said, hey, this is just craziness.
Yeah.
We have no money and all this stuff. But the wind was always kind of behind us, because it always felt like the trajectory of where, the market was going was exactly where we were taking it.
Do you remember one of your earliest stranger-funded projects?
Well, the first one that was ever funded was actually a movie, and it was just so cool to see this movie funded, and it definitely had some strangers fund it.
Do you remember the name of it?
The Lilliput.
The Lilliput.
Yeah. They only wanted to raise 10,000 and they raised 10,000. And I remember it was those final days before they were potentially going to be able to hit their goal or not. And we were really rooting for them. And it was just really exciting to be able to hit it. And then we dispersed the money to them and they were really excited. And it's incredible to send this money to them. Otherwise, it would never have happened.
They make the movie, and did you see it?
I haven't seen the movie. I know it was still in production. But there's lots of other movies that have been made. For example, at Tribeca this past year, we had both award winners, so the Grand Jury Award winner and also audience. Bully was funded on Indiegogo before it got picked up by the Weinstein Company and the national distribution, as well as Give Up Tomorrow, which was a movie about the death penalty. But it's really cool. You go from January 2008 to fast forward, and all of a sudden you have the first ever crowdfunded baby. Not only that, actually it got funded to be able to have a baby through in vitro fertilization, because they couldn't afford the actual medical bills, but they actually had the baby. So the doctors said no, they got turned down by insurance, they got turned down by other methods of trying to get money, and they tweeted out that they're looking for an opportunity or something. Our team saw this tweet saying we need to figure out how to find funding, because we're tracking different words on Twitter. We sent them a note, check out Indiegogo, and they raised the money they needed from a majority of strangers, got pregnant, and just had the baby.
So this crowdfunded baby sounds extraordinary. I have to ask, how much money did they want to raise? How much did they raise? How quickly did it take them? How many people supported them?
I think they wanted to raise $8,000, and they were able to break their goal. That was the money they needed to be able to have the different treatments that they needed to have happen. I think over 50% of the funding was from complete and utter strangers, and it even then got written up in the New York Times, which was pretty cool. In terms of an impact, yes, that's one life, and that's probably the greatest impact possible, but think of another campaign like Illuminate is actually inflatable solar lights. Okay. Super cool. Imagine it's a Ziploc bag with a little device that captures the solar energy. Okay. So at any time you can fold up the Ziploc bag and you put it in your pocket. It's really easy. But when you want to use it, you lay it out on the grass. It collects all the energy. Then you blow it up like a Ziploc bag, and it diffuses all the light. It was created by these two women from Columbia here in New York. They went on to Indiegogo. They wanted to raise only $10,000. They 5x that goal.
50K, huh?
That's right, 50K. And the coolest thing is they got funded in over 25 countries. For every light that you bought, they gave a light to someone in a third world country so they could have free light.
Well, besides actually getting the funding from the crowd, that crowd becomes a customer, a support group, someone to help spread the word. Extraordinary value beyond just some customer at some store you'll never meet or interact with again.
Indiegogo is really on this precipice of moving the world from a world of transactions into a world of relationships. We really think of our campaigns, all of them, as really entrepreneurs. Is you get 5 things. Number 1 is you get to gauge demand and you get to mitigate risk.
Does the world care or not?
Exactly. Number 2 is you get to test your marketing. Is this for young girls or old women, young boys or old men? Number 3 is you get more promotion than you ever could on your own. So we're getting millions of page views every month and you can get lots more exposure. Number 4 is you get the data. Probably the most valuable thing you can get is actually the people's names, their email addresses, physical addresses when they're willing to provide them. This is part of that creation of a relationship. Instead of a one-time transaction, this is part of an ongoing thing. Number 5 is you get the money. The money is good. You get a lot more return and value out of doing an Indiegogo campaign.
What are the numbers for Indiegogo today? You came up with in 2006, launched in 2008, we're in 2012. How many campaigns, how many users, how much capital raised? Can you give me a sense of the...
We have over 7,000 active campaigns right now. We're getting millions of page views. We're distributing millions of dollars every week. We are funding in virtually every country of the world. We're totally global, and it's pretty exciting.
You made press recently as well with the woman on the bus.
Karen Klein, the bus monitor.
It's become sort of a Silicon Alley or Silicon Valley lore. You tell us that story.
Yeah, probably the campaign with the greatest exposure ever in crowdfunding. Karen Klein is a bus monitor. She was working in upstate New York in Rochester. She was making $18,000 a year. I believe she was 68 years old. And there was a few kids on the bus that really started bullying her, completely inappropriate. And it really was amazing because what they did was the kids perpetuated the bullying by putting a YouTube video up to show the video that they made using their flip cam or camera or whatever. The amazing thing that happened, though, is that video turned back on them because then somebody, whose name was Max Sidoroff, actually decided as a good Samaritan just to use that video to try to create a campaign on Indiegogo to raise money for Karen so she can go on vacation.
And
$5,000.
$5,000 target.
Keep in mind, $5,000 is a lot for her, too, because she makes $18,000 a year. So she wants to raise $5,000 for her to send her on vacation. Now, in the next 72 hours, the campaign gets funded in every single state in America and in 82 countries.
Holy cow.
And they proceed to raise over $600,000 in just those 72 hours alone.
$600,000 in 72 hours.
Right. But the cool thing is not so much the money, but rather the reach.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So every single state in America, 82 countries, 2,500 global media outlets cover the Indiegogo campaign specifically. And it's just incredible how the word spread. Now, the cool thing about it, it's not just because we thought it was a fancy campaign. See, at Indiegogo, we have the Gogo factor, which is our proprietary formula like Google created PageRank,
right,
which is we allow anybody to create a campaign. And the way we separate between a good campaign or a less relevant campaign is how high its Gogo factor is.
Okay.
And that way everybody has an equal opportunity at exposure. And that campaign with Karen Klein really had a rapid rise for Gogo factor.
Describe for me what a Gogo factor is.
One of the whole principles of Indiegogo is that anybody can create a campaign for absolutely positively anything.
So you don't actually filter the campaigns?
There is no vetting, no curation, no gate, no judgment.
Okay, very cool.
Anybody can create a campaign for absolutely anything. Imagine Google saying, no, you can't create a website that we'd index.
Right.
How unfair would that be? Right?
Yeah.
Everybody should have an opportunity. And what we do is when you have more of that open approach, you need to come up with good formulas or ways of discovering and separating the good versus the bad or what is relevant versus not.
Sure.
And so we created the Gogo factor exactly in the same way that Google created PageRank, which is just our own proprietary formula index, which allows for campaigns to be measured against each other. The cool thing is it's a multi-variable approach to be able to have all activity being tracked.
The more the crowd sort of supports it, the more likely it is to be something that is worth supporting.
Exactly.
Right. Very cool. As people watch this video, majority of them are entrepreneurs. They're interested in doing something big and bold in the world, making a difference, making their dreams come true. For the entrepreneur, capital has historically been the limiting asset, right? Lots of dreams, lots of willpower, but not capital.
Right.
You liberate that for them. So I want to go into the, Slava's tutorial on how to use Indiegogo. What's the advice you have for someone with a dream? What would they do? What should they do? Let's jump in.
Yeah, well, my first thing to say is money should never be the obstacle because you can really prove a lot of things without a lot of money. Indiegogo definitely, based on our experience of going back 4.5 years and the most campaigns in the industry, have 3 things that really matter. Number 1 is have a good pitch. Number 2, be proactive. And number 3, find an audience that cares. So based on all the data, here's a little bit more details.
Sure.
For having a good pitch, we know you want to have a video as part of your campaign. If you have a video, you raise on average 114% more money than if you do not have a video. Campaigns that hit their targets, on average, will hit their target on day 36 of a 47-day long campaign.
On the video, how long is the video?
We would suggest between 2 to 3 minutes. Shorter is better.
And
More important is not the length of the video, but the fact that there's people in it, it's engaging. It's not about selling or begging, but rather that you're trying to explain what you're trying to accomplish, how much you're trying to raise, what can people get in return, and why should they get involved.
And it's sort of a authentic, intimate, this is who I am, this is why I'm doing it.
Absolutely. People care about the story as much as they care about just giving you money.
And people, I would imagine, people give to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you suggest in the video that they're focusing on why the product should be important, or how the product would be used in your life, or why it's valuable to the person?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be able to engage them. There's 4 reasons why anybody funds anything in life. Number 1 is because they care about the person, the cause, or the idea.
Okay.
Number 2 is because they want the perks. They want the product,
Sure.
the service, or the experience.
Yeah.
Number 3, they want to be part of the community. Or number 4, they want to profit. They want to give $1 and get $5 back. In America, it's not legal quite yet to do number 4 because the Jobs Act is not implemented yet. I probably will, they say, in early 2013. But the other 3 is really up to you to engage each audience member appropriately in your video and in your pitch.
Awesome. And so when I launch an Indiegogo campaign, do I set a time limit? How?
Yeah.
So talk about the time duration. What's your advice? What's the longest, shortest?
So you can set it from anything from 1 to 120 days.
Okay.
For the duration of your campaign. What we see is typically a little bit shorter is better. So on average, a campaign that hits its target will hit its target on day 36 of a 47-day long campaign. And campaigns that don't hit their targets will last 56 days long.
If I was picking a duration, I should pick 47 days as the length of the campaign?
Well, that's what the average shows according to the data. What I would suggest is make it as long as you can, as you can be fully active. Don't make it 60 days long just to take off 30 days and be active for 30 days. Go blitzkrieg right away. Run out of the gate super fast and keep going all the way until the end. Some people make it really short, like 21 to 30 days. That way there's no real middle. You got to just hit the ground running and keep going. 47 days shows to be the best average right now, but you could also last 90 or 120 days, but it's harder to keep that energy going.
So really what I'm hearing you saying is there's a beginning when it's new and media hits and you have a spike of activity, then it falls off, and then as you come to the deadline, it picks up again?
So in the beginning, you're not going to get any media. What you want to do right out of the gate is get your friends and family to be your first people to fund you. Once you get close to about a 20%, maybe as high as 40% benchmark, that's when strangers will want to start funding you. So once you get to that 20 to 40%, that's when media attention can be really valuable. Don't waste it up front just when you have a 0 funded campaign, because nobody wants to fund an empty campaign and feel like they're the first sucker to be part of this fraudulent campaign.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then at the end, there's definitely a spike as well because everybody wants to either back a winner or they want to try to help support this campaign to get to that finish line.
Interesting. And do you have at Indiegogo a sort of a requirement to hit a minimum threshold of capital? Or do you take everything you've gotten to the point?
Yeah, so Indiegogo is all about serving the customer and what the customer wants. So what we've learned is the customer wants options.
Yeah.
Some people want to have a fixed funding campaign, which means hit your target or don't get your money. And some want to have, hey, I just want to raise as much as I can raise independent of hitting the target. So we call that fixed and flexible funding, and you can have either option. You set that as the campaign owner up front, and that's transparent to the funders, and you cannot change it during the duration of the campaign.
We have the video, we set the duration. What's the next thing they're thinking about?
Perks. You want to have some interesting perks. 93% of campaigns that hit their targets will have perks in return. These are products or services or experiences. 70% of campaigns will have between 3 to 8 perks.
What's the cash level on these perks?
I like to say high, medium, and low. Low is 30 or below. Medium is 31 to 100. High is anything really above 100. Typically that high will be something like 100 to 500.
Right.
It's also nice to set up like a lottery ticket, which is above $1,000. you'd be shocked at how many people actually fund that $1,000 or higher perk just because it's there. And if you didn't actually list it to be there, they would have never funded that.
Is there a maximum cap that you have?
We've had people fund as high as $60,000
At one funding.
for one perk.
If I wanted to create an Indiegogo campaign and have a $100,000 level, could I do that?
I think you can. I actually don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure how many zeros you're allowed to put into the perks, but I'm sure there's some sort of query as part of the validation.
Interesting. So I set up my perks 3 to 8. They should be obviously something of interest, value to the user related to my campaign. What else? What other advice do you have?
So you want to have your copy to really mimic the video. It's not about just selling your idea. You want to first welcome yourself, say hello, but this is who I am, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. You want to be transparent about what the money is needed for, what will be the result. So that's about the pitch. The next thing is about being proactive. So for being proactive, you want to have 4 more people on your team will raise 70% more money than if you have one person. So you can have multiple people on your team at Indiegogo as part of your campaign. So we've learned that if you have 4 or more people on your team, you'll raise 70% more money than if you only have one person.
How do I, as the person going to the site, see how many people are on this team?
Just part of the section of the campaign profile.
So just describing the number of who they are.
Yeah, and they usually have connection with their Facebook account, or they are showing their picture and
Fantastic.
a little bio. So it's really about a transparency as to who's behind this. And people can start triangulating as to, is this fraudulent, not fraudulent? I know this person, I read this, I looked at this. So they're starting to gain more trust with strangers.
And really it's about trust, right? Funding is a transfer of capital, is a transfer of trust as well.
The ultimate trust, absolutely.
What else?
So the next thing is, we know that you want updates. So you want to keep your campaign fresh. You don't want to just create the campaign and walk away and hope that it gets funded. We know that if you have an update every 5 days or less, you'll raise 4 times more money than if you do an update every 20 days or more. An update is kind of considered like a microblog, where you can actually keep the campaign with new information coming out. Every few days you can write anything you want, from thanks Jerry and Bob for funding us, we're now at 20%, or we just learned that we got a brand new artist as part of our video game, or we just found out that we're going to be able to get that lease for the store we're trying to open. People like hearing that new bit of information. Or maybe somebody came in with a matching fund and says, hey, we just found out that we're going to get $10,000 matched for the next $10,000 that gets funding. So that sort of update keeps it nice and fresh.
Let's say I have 500 funders so far. I'm in the middle of a campaign.
Yep.
Do I get their emails? How am I communicating with those funders?
Yeah, so by doing an update, the update will automatically go out to all of your funders.
So I post an update onto Indiegogo's site, and
Yep.
it gets then reflected to all my funders.
Exactly, and anybody that's taken action on your campaign, exactly. And if for any reason the people don't want those updates, they can just opt out to say, I don't want to get updates from Peter because he's annoying.
Okay, I can imagine him saying that about me. At what point typically do you know that a campaign is going to get fully funded? Is there like a tipping point for it?
I don't know that there's a clear tipping point, but you can see usually by the time it gets to 20 to 40% that it's really going to move in the right direction. There's very few campaigns that make it 80 or 90% of the way there and don't actually hit their targets. That said, not all campaigns need to hit their targets on Indiegogo because we have flexible funding.
Sure.
And a lot of people like having that flexible funding option.
What percentage of all campaigns actually do hit their full funding target?
Believe it or not, if you follow the steps that we're talking about, most of them actually will hit their
Wow.
target.
Wow.
The problem is that a lot of people will hope that it's just that if I build it, they will come, and they just post on Indiegogo and then will walk away. Those campaigns often do fairly poorly. Let me just mention a couple other things though in terms of help. We know hands down that email is your #1 tool for raising money.
Okay.
Facebook is number 2 and Twitter is number 3.
So email, meaning if I can get friends who got lists,
Yep.
sending out emails
Yep.
saying come to this site, support them.
Yep.
That's so.
Best conversion rates and highest amount of contributions.
So if I can find lists of tens of thousands, 100,000s of people that actually have something to do with my subject area, use that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. So
Start Facebook fan pages that promote and support.
Yep, that's all helpful as well. The thing about email that people often make mistakes is they'll load up emails with tons of information and many different links. You want to keep it very clear,
Go to the site.
very direct, and only have one link.
Right.
People often want to explain all of life's problems and then get to a link at the bottom. You need to explain the link right up front and then explain all of the background. People have really short attention spans. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I believe it. Reading it on their cell phone.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's the average contribution you're seeing these days on Indiegogo?
Yeah, so that's actually the highest in the industry. It's approximately $75. It fluctuates between 70 to 78.
That is significant.
Yeah.
And in terms of campaign sizes, average campaign size and largest you've seen so far?
Sure. So campaigns, in terms of their sweet spot, is going to be somewhere between like $3,000 to $25,000 is kind of the sweet spot. Campaigns can go as high as hundreds of thousands or even millions. Right now, the Karen Klein campaign is one of our biggest at $700,000.
Do you see in the future seeing this funding projects routinely in the single-digit millions or tens of millions? Do you think we'll get to that point?
You know, I'm very biased, but I absolutely think we'll get to that point. I mean, I see the world of crowdfunding just becoming a normal way of funding things. And you know, soon you'll see governments using it for funding, you'll see corporations using it, you'll see colleges using it, you'll see all types of businesses using it. When you start thinking about it, it's not just a fancy, fun way of doing stuff. You're really getting a lot of benefit. You're getting the money, you're getting the demand analysis, you're getting the promotion, you're getting the data. This is all very valuable stuff. So a lot more folks and industries will move into this.
So right now, I think of Indiegogo is the first. I think of Rocket Hub and Kickstarter as other platforms. Do they differentiate at all? Do you have a sweet spot of campaigns that most people think about Indiegogo, or do you see Indiegogo as servicing all of the different areas?
After Indiegogo launched in January 2008, it's incredible to see all the competitors. I mean, I think it's over 600 now.
Wow.
And probably the most incredible thing is we actually have competitors funded on Indiegogo. And they write in their campaign that they're going to be just like Indiegogo, but better. And we're totally cool with that because we're completely open.
Wow.
So it's quite easy, I would say, to copy a website in terms of the ones and zeros of a design. But it's actually quite challenging to create a really good crowdfunding platform. There's a lot of infrastructure there, there's a lot of fraud analysis, there's a lot of operations, there's a lot of promotion, there's a lot of heavy lifting. We're very proud of Indiegogo being completely different than any other platform. Specifically, there's three things. Okay. Number one, we are totally open to any campaign anywhere in the world for absolutely anything, no judgment. Number two is our GoGo factor, which is really a merit-driven formula where anybody can get an equal opportunity at promotion. And number three is our commitment to the customer. So we really focus on customer happiness. Whether it's a great campaign or a small, tiny campaign, everybody gets an equal opportunity at education and support.
So does the GoGo factor drive what campaigns get front page visibility and so forth? How does that, if I have a great campaign for a great mission that people are excited about, how do I get exposure on the site?
That's exactly what it does, which is, we're getting hundreds of campaigns signing up every day. So it'd be really unfair if it was me and a few other folks just kind of arguing with each other who deserves to be on the homepage. Better yet, who bought me drinks at a bar or who sent me the right cupcakes at my store, right?
What flavor do you like?
Red velvet might be my favorite, but it won't get you any further on the homepage because it's all about the GoGo factor. So when you have all these campaigns signing up and you're trying to give a good experience to your funders, you want to provide the most relevant content. And what we deem as the way to get the most relevant content is let the community decide by indexing it as a score. So then that's exactly what happens. A campaign can get pushed up into popular, onto the blog, into the homepage, into the newsletter, or get even further exposure through the media.
How many total campaigns from the start are you able to, you said 7,000 active right now, or 7,000 concurrent. It's huge. But from the start do you have a number?
Many tens of thousands. I'm not sure exactly what the number is.
That's extraordinary.
And we're impacting millions of lives and actually thousands, tens of thousands, or not, maybe hundreds of thousands of jobs, which is pretty interesting.
And accelerating.
Rapidly
accelerating, which is so cool. I mean, this has the potential not only to reinvent capital formation and startups, but also job creation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, Kauffman Foundation has said that, the average small business starts with less than $10,000. I mean, this is like the sweet spot, for Indiegogo campaigns to be able to get funding. And you can have more people raise more money to be able to have more companies created. A perfect example, Walk in Love. Walk in Love is a campaign on Indiegogo, which is a guy, TJ, who wanted to create a t-shirt company. He's a designer, in his 20s. He quits his job. He starts a little company with a kiosk in the middle of the mall in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Sells a few hundred shirts, sees that he's got something there. Sees the store down the hall and he says, I want a store like that, but who can afford the lease and the rent and all the people? So he creates a campaign on Indiegogo to raise $30,000 to be able to afford the lease and the people that he needs and to be able to get the inventory for an entire year. Raises the money and then now has 15 employees. I mean, 15 employees with a store in Pennsylvania. I mean, that's real jobs.
It's a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
Congratulations, pal. Thank you. How could large companies take advantage of this? Are they playing at all in this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still very early in large companies really ready to adopt. I think we saw the same thing with social networking, where in the early days you had bands and you had individuals, high school students really excited about social networking and sharing and communication. And any brand that was worth its salt or organization said, whoa, 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 I'm not getting involved anywhere with that. And then before you knew it, you then had the next phase of that, which was there was this small little island called social media strategy, which was over here.
Yeah.
Then you had the rest of your marketing and communication budget, which was all this huge mammoth amount here. And then you have the next phase, which is today, which is now practically not only is it not separated, but the social media strategy and branding is actually the marketing and communication entire plan. So I think we're still way early in crowdfunding where any brand worth its salt is not even getting close to it. But you're seeing some innovative companies starting to step forward. For example, already Nokia has done a matching fund on Indiegogo for one of the charities that raised money. So they're on the site providing money right against everybody else's crowdfunded funding. So Nokia gets the benefit of being able to say, hey, I don't want to give money just to give it away. I want to know that other people care about this. And I want to be in line with what other people care about. And these people are all sharing through social media, Facebook, Twitter, email, etc. And Nokia is being spread everywhere. Nokia doesn't have to pay for that except for being supportive of these great campaigns.
Do you remember offhand how much Nokia is matching and what the charity is in this story?
The charity is called Camp Interactive. It's actually a New York-based charity to be able to have inner city kids learn technology skills like how to use computers.
Okay.
Very cool charity. And they wanted to raise $10,000 for their summer programming. They were able to raise the $10,000 and Nokia was willing to give up to $10,000 of match.
So that's great. And I can imagine, frankly, it's a why not, because corporate charity, why not match double corporate charity with the public matching it and the corporation knowing that the public cares about it. You're a visionary. What's the future? What's like the phase 2 and phase 3 of crowdfunding and large companies? Do you have any models of what might happen in the future?
Well, now you're just making me release all my secrets.
I don't want to do that, but I want people to know that you have this vision when it happens.
Sure. Yeah, there's a few flavors of how this will evolve, in my opinion. I think in the financial industries, you'll see that this will become another financial product, just the way people will use credit cards and banks will offer credit cards. Mm-hmm. Banks will want to offer crowdfunding because no one will ever want to lose their small businesses or turn anybody down. You'll see companies like GM, which is a mammoth, car company, use it because they'll want to be able to outsource/crowdsource their R&D. Now, not only will you have all these people that are hobbyists and care about cars being able to come up with ideas, you'll be able to have them each come up with their crowdfunding campaign to determine which of them are the best campaigns, and maybe of the million campaigns that are created, they'll take the top 50 and actually incubate those with matching funds from GM and bring them in-house to turn those into amazing products. You don't have to have a million-person R&D company in-house. You can have everybody working on it. But not only is it R&D-like ideas, you're actually proving that there's demand there.
Yeah.
And that you can use the GM execution and distribution to bring it to life. So that's one flavor. Another flavor is, can you imagine you have Barnes & Noble, Barnes & Nobles, and you have a physical store and a digital outlet. And so you're basically selling books. Let's call them transactions. And no one really thinks Barnes & Noble as this, should we say, this engaged community of proactive people. They just think of it, I buy something, I walk away. But what is your limitations? You have a physical store, which has a limitation of physical space, and then a digital store, which is trying to find out what's relevant. On Indiegogo, let's call it Barnes & Noble's Next. You can have an entire community of writers who start coming together and offering up what their books or writing ideas are. And if they can get them crowdfunded to the point that they need to, then maybe they'll be able to get online to the site to be able to get exposure. Or if they reach a certain threshold, they'll be able to be in the physical store. And if they reach even a better threshold, they'll be right in the front of the store.
Wow.
Now, you don't actually have to take risk as the owner or the manager of that store because you have all the data which is proving that the community wants this.
So it's a meritocracy of physical manifestation.
Right. And at the same time, you have this digital connection with those people, so you're creating this community. And now you're shifting your brand from just a transactional brand of selling books to we're actually nurturing the entire book community. So we're helping to create it and getting a way to get it out there, which is really good for a brand like Barnes & Noble's, for example.
Sure.
So that could be pretty cool.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And if you want to get really deep into ROI, really, if you have a propensity to buy with crowdfunding, right? Which is if you read a blog and you have advertising that Google's putting against it, it has a certain price point because what's the propensity to buy versus that content? And Google keeps on wanting to get better at that. Now with crowdfunding, you have a very high propensity to buy because what you're doing is actually buying.
You're right. It's the purpose. That's the reason you're there.
So you're in a really good place to spend money. So if you can actually see that somebody's willing to crowdfund a book, which is about Friday the 13th, maybe what they'll do is the current book, which is out by Stephen King, they'll buy today. So you're Barnes & Noble, you have physical store, online, you have inventory you want to push, and you're trying to get to all these people in a better way to know what they want. Well, they're showing you what they want by what they're crowdfunding.
We're potentially disrupting a significant number of old-style financial institutions, which I think is a very good thing to do, by the way. So, any thoughts on that?
You know, there's this new fad in diets with food called paleo diet,
Right.
which is, in short, eating the way we used to eat hundreds or thousands of years ago. And it's interesting because they call it the paleo diet, but all it really is eat the way you used to eat yesterday, right? And I like to think of crowdfunding really as like paleo funding, because all it really is funding things the way we used to do hundreds of years ago, right? Which was the local community wanted something to happen, so everybody figured out, do we really need this? Let's get the money necessary to make it happen. Now you have the technology and everything moving forward to be able to do it in a much bigger spectrum. Now let's connect that to the way the commercial industry evolved. So you had radio, and you had radio commercials. And then all of a sudden you had TV come out. And for the first decade, when TV came out, TV commercials were actually still pictures with radio commercials.
Right.
So the entire technology changed, and for literally a decade, they kept on doing the same exact thing as they did yesterday with the new technology. So in my opinion, the TV moment was when the internet really came out and started becoming commercialized, which let's just say for argument's sake is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And right now you have those pipes, you have all those things that are happening with the internet, and yet funding still feels like it's happening like the radio. So it's just incredible to see that now with the internet, people can really move forward and do funding the way it can potentially be done.
The Jobs Act is slated to be approved. What is the Jobs Act and what does it make possible?
The Jobs Act is a new initiative that was started by President Obama and Steve Case to be able to stimulate more job creation. It has 6 different subsegments in it, including easier to IPO, taking away some of the Sarbanes-Oxley issues, and anyway, a lot of different things. But one of the other elements, and one that's talked about a lot, is the crowdfunding element, which is to really allow for crowdfunding to become an investment vehicle. So allowing anybody to invest in any idea. What that means is not having to be an accredited investor, meaning that you don't have to have these thresholds of how rich you are to be able to afford investing in something that is not publicly available. And publicly, we mean registered through the SEC, like an IPO.
So if I need to raise $100,000, I could have 100 people give me $100 each.
Exactly. And today, you wouldn't be allowed to do that because...
Or 100 people give me $1,000 each.
Exactly. And the reason you wouldn't be allowed to do that today is because if you did a private placement memorandum, which is that what you're talking about, a private solicitation, you would have to go to only quote-unquote rich people, people that are accredited investors according to the SEC. That's kind of unfair, and I don't really know why that needs to be. Really, it's a rule that came out as of 1933 with the Securities Act of 1933, trying to, as they say, save orphans and grandmas from going broke. But really today you have a lot more information, you have a lot more transparency, a lot more data, and a lot of things have changed since 1933, yet many of our securities laws have not.
On a future Indiegogo campaign, one option could be, instead of me giving you products that you buy in return, I might give you equity in my company.
Exactly. Exactly. It might be you might be giving both actually, but we don't know yet.
When is crowdfunding going to have a significant, measurable impact on the financing world?
Oh, it's hard to tell. I really think of crowdfunding as just another one of the tools at which you can fund your business or your idea. But something incredible that's already happened is with Satari Star. So Satari Star is a campaign that was on Indiegogo, 2 engineers from the Valley. They wanted to create this really unique electronics device which would be able to throw your phone into this holder and put a fob on you, and you can just run around and the phone will track you. So no longer would you have to have somebody like holding the camera to watch you, or while you're giving a presentation, this holder would track you using just RFID.
For video?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly, for video. Okay. So really cool product.
Yeah.
And these guys went to VCs in the Valley and many others, and over 30 of them turned them down. And they turned them down exactly the way a classic Valley VC will turn them down. I totally love this. This is absolutely incredible. I totally want to fund this. All you need to do is bring it to market, get the first production run done, show that there's customers that will buy your first production run, and we will totally scale this business up. Which is another way of saying no.
It's another way of saying, when you don't need the money, I'll give it to you.
That's right. And the cool thing that happened was they came on Indiegogo and they were able to raise the money they needed for their production run in China by pre-selling the product to different folks that wanted the demand. They showed the demand, they got the customer list, they got the data, they tested their marketing. And all of a sudden on Indiegogo, they did everything that those VCs said you should go do. So within a few months, in came some investors for nearly $1 million. So not only did the crowdfunding campaign not deter the investors, the crowdfunding campaign proved to the investors that they should invest.
It validated the marketplace for the product and service.
And I think over time what you'll see is more of that. I think you'll see that the campaigns will be only further validation of data.
So it's interesting. I can imagine in the future VCs saying, listen, go to Indiegogo, start a campaign, and if you get enough traction, we'll fund you.
Right, right.
So fascinating.
I mean, in the near term, it might be considered negative reverse selection, right? Which is just all the quote-unquote bad campaigns are going to Indiegogo and all the good campaigns are getting funded by VCs. But I think that will shift because if you go on Indiegogo and not give away any of your equity,
you're
really going to have to start finding some value as to what are the VCs or investors really providing. Now, I'm not poo-pooing investors or VCs. I mean, I think having mentorship, guidance, and having all the right connections is very valuable. But people are going to have to really earn their keep here.
Wonderful. What are some of your coolest different campaigns that you've had?
Well, we had a guy who broke his tooth on the weekend. On Saturday, he needed a root canal. He found out. On Sunday, he put up a campaign. On Monday, it was fully funded, mostly by strangers. We have a air compression gun that shoots flies by using salt as the ammo. You know, we have solar backpacks.
I want one of those.
Solar backpacks, trips to, I actually got a perk where it's a trip to Costa Rica into the Osa, which is considered one of the greatest rainforests outside of Brazil, and it's a documentary about the Osa, so I got that as a perk. But you got really remarkable things when you connect passion with the opportunity to get exposure. It's really cool.
What are some of the coolest perks, the perks that work best, you think?
And the perks really are determined by the campaign owners, and you always want them to be special, unique, handmade, limited edition. You want to be able to create a special connection with your funders. So it's more than just that Walmart piece of toilet paper, right? Speaking of toilet paper, we just had a campaign called Who Gives a Crap for a guy who created a campaign to raise money by offering this amazing new biodegradable, recyclable toilet paper. I mean, he came up with this new product, and by selling that, he's going to be able to use the proceeds to create a new form of toilets for third world countries. He literally called the campaign Who Gives a Crap. The reason I bring up toilet paper is one of his perks was he was on a 24, 48 hour straight video stream where he was sitting on a toilet saying he's not going to get off this toilet until the campaign is funded. And one of the perks was he'd write "thank you," your name on a piece of toilet paper and put it up to the camera.
So that's talking about a committed, sustained campaign.
Absolutely, very committed.
Did it happen? Did he raise his money?
Totally.
How much did he raise?
He wanted to raise $50,000. He raised the $50,000, I think, within 2 days.
Wow.
And now the campaign is still going, and he's well beyond it.
But he's off the toilet now.
He is off the toilet. He's off the toilet. There's all kinds of incredible perks from, trips into the rainforest, electronics, pieces of Saddam Hussein's carpet from his old, mansion or whatever. It's really just remarkable. You can have your face animated into a comic. You could have figurines made of you. I mean, it was just wild stuff.
Do you have a sense of how big the Indiegogo community is, the number of people who've been there? Are you able to say?
We don't discuss exact numbers, but it is growing very rapidly, and it definitely matters to have people engaged and really create the experience for them that they want to keep coming back. It's remarkable how many people fund multiple campaigns, so it's great.
A lot of the people viewing this are looking to create a community for whatever they're going to do, whether they're looking to crowdsource a new innovation or create a do-it-yourself community. How did you create the Indiegogo community in the beginning? What did you do? Where'd you go? How did you keep them there? How do you keep them engaged? What's your advice to someone who's trying to build a community these days?
The biggest challenge, a lot of people say right now, they check out Indiegogo and they're like, hey, this is really easy. You have a marketplace model. There's no work there. But really a marketplace model is actually one of the hardest models to be able to pull off because you need to seed both sides of the marketplace. And for us, we really focused on getting some campaign owners up front and really focusing on having a lot of customer attention. And then as we started getting funders to really ensure that they were having a good experience as well. I mean, for me, it's really not about community first, it's really about product first. Too often people think about marketing and PR and exposure, but we try to be product obsessed first. After that, we were customer obsessed, which is ensuring that the customers are getting what they want. After that, it was really about the customer service, which is really a differentiator about Indiegogo as well. And then finally, you get into the marketing. But in terms of the community, it's really about ensuring people are getting the best experience possible.
And are most of the people who come to the community brought there by PR, by your homepage, by their friends? What drives people to come to the Indiegogo site and to the community?
So Indiegogo is doing a lot of different promotional things in terms of newsletters and PR and online and different conferences. But the number one tool to get more people to the campaigns is the actual great campaign itself.
So the entrepreneur, like the guy sitting on the toilet, who comes up with some unique way to get large email lists, to create something that the media...
Right, but then it'll start going viral. It's very similar actually to the way YouTube works, which is most people don't go to YouTube's homepage, especially in the earlier days. So it's really somebody creates a video on YouTube and they start spreading it out.
By email? By Facebook?
Twitter, Facebook, text, whatever. Some will never really get a huge virality because they won't really spread beyond their inner circle, and some will get huge. And Indiegogo is exactly the same way.
So Slava, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For sharing your knowledge, and congratulations really for launching this industry. Amazing success.
Thank you very much.